Trade tensions between Canada and the United States have dragged on for months. And the U.S. ambassador to Canada, Pete Hoekstra, was in Halifax yesterday arguing against a trade war with the U.S., saying it's not a helpful strategy to resolve what he calls negotiations.
The cabinet's now saying that we're at war with America. That doesn't help, okay? That doesn't, an American opinion, okay? Right. Maybe in Canada saying we're at war, maybe that's something that Canadians stand up and say, yes, 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 okay? We have an enemy. I don't think so. I know a little bit about Canada.
Hoekstra also said he doesn't believe the two countries are at war, and that if U.S. President Donald Trump thought he was at war, Canadians would see a whole different kind of relationship in trade negotiations. Let's bring in CTV News U.S. political analyst Eric Ham. Eric, an interesting one coming from the U.S. ambassador to Canada about the anti-American tone that he is hearing from Canadian politicians in particular. What did you make of the remarks yesterday?
I think they were interesting and somewhat, if not somewhat comical. Basically, he's saying, you know, don't believe your ears and your eyes, believe exactly what I am saying. And we know Donald Trump, when he was first elected, made clear that he was prepared for what he called economic warfare against Canada. And he wanted to engage in this type of warfare because he wanted to see Canada come under American sovereignty. It's one of the reasons why we saw the president double down on the ongoing tariffs on goods coming into the United States from Canada. I think it's great, however, to see the ambassador now laughing off and joking about this. Perhaps that means there's some actual daylight for the two nations to not only repair the damages, but also find a way to get back to engaging in an economic relationship that has also been the envy of the world.
Yeah, and I think that too, right? That was one of my thoughts about this, is that, you know, there's a little more lightheartedness to this, or at least there is trying to be from the U.S. ambassador. We did learn earlier today that Canada is going to officially open their consultation process with businesses and industry. The United States is doing the same. So is that window starting to open up a little bit more for the possibility of finding more common ground in a new trade agreement?
I think it's still too early to tell. This is President Donald Trump we're talking about, so we know, and we have seen just over these last 8 to nearly 9 months how the president can literally switch on a dime. But what I think has been clear and consistent throughout his second term in office is the level of disdain that we have seen from this president towards Canada. Now, of course, both Canada and Mexico always thought that it would simply be pro forma with extending the free trade agreement between all three countries. But again, with Donald Trump, it's not so clear, and I think only time will tell exactly what will happen.
And again, with Hoekstra in particular, too, in his position, at least at this point, he was in Halifax, and maybe not necessarily part of all the overall trade negotiations. Does this have these comments and this rhetoric any, again, how much weight, I guess, should we put behind it? And do we look into, at least at this point, as we move forward to these consultations in this process?
Well, you have to remember, people who work for Donald Trump don't necessarily work in the interests of the United States. They are operating for an audience of one, and that is the president of the United States. In fact, what we're seeing right now is we're learning that because one of the U.S. attorneys is not bringing criminal charges against the New York Attorney General, the president is now prepared to fire that U.S. attorney. So we know that when Donald Trump wants something done, even if it doesn't fit his agenda, there could be repercussions. And I think that's something we have to keep in mind when we hear people who work for Donald Trump actually speak. So it's one thing to hear what they say, but it's more important to follow not the actions of what a representative for the Trump White House might say, but to look specifically to what Donald Trump will actually do.
CTV News U.S. political analyst Eric Ham. Thanks again for this, Eric, as always. Appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you.